You've got a good feeling about this Neato person?
Yeah, I'm on the case. I'm on the case.
Gotcha. Well, we do have an exciting matchup for you all. It is our first Division 1 matchup of the season. The H-Town Rebels out of the University of Houston going up against GT Gold of Georgia Tech.
And there's a lot to talk about from both of these teams. In fact, the last time they saw each other was very recently. Entrance exam number 7. H-Town Rebels beat GT Gold 2-1, so Houston knows their way around Georgia Tech, and looking at Georgia Tech themselves, they do have a star-studded roster on their hands, so I do want to see what plays out within these next few games.
Yes, I think that's actually a really great thing to point out there, Neato. Yeah, like H-Town Rebels does have the upper hand. They have a little bit more of the history. They come from a very robust program out of the University of Houston. GT Gold, a little bit newer to the scene, starting this academic year. They do have a couple of, like I said, a star-studded roster. They have a couple of big players with Tacos and Taco, which, it sometimes can get a little bit confusing at times. As the two, players that I think a lot of folks may recognize from the greater scene, but a well-rounded roster nonetheless. I think that they had a lot of potential in that circuit season, ultimately coming up short of some expectations, you could say. But I think, the league season is going to be a great opportunity to see what GT Gold really has to offer now that they have really established themselves. They have a semester under their belt. Let's see where this program can go.
And it's really interesting bringing up GT Gold's run at the entrance exam. They had 3 teams they lost to, and all 3 of them are going to be names you hear later on. Obviously, H-Town Rebels is number 1. Actually lost to the Reef Runners, and they lost to another Division 1 team, so not surprising that they ended up with a 3-3 record. They lost against some heavy hitters there, but they have an opportunity to reclaim and return from all of that here in Game 1. Splatoon's Umami Maroons.
Well, let's get to it. Jumping into Splatzone's Umami Ruins, taking a look at some of these compositions here. And the first thing that's going to stand out to me is on the side of Houston, the Glugas, but also the Slosher Deco combination.
It is a wonderful combination, and the weapon that Complete is known for bringing out to these Splatoon matches, but maybe it's not going to work out too well in the beginning here. It's just Boo Boo left to their own powers. Taco is leading the charge. Leo Fotio right in the back. That's going to be Taco as well. 2 Tacos here. Thankfully, we do have one named after a character from a very well animated movie, which we can discuss that later.
Well, it is Georgia Tech that does maintain early control, but going a member down, make it 2. It's going to be the Blasted. It's going to be able to at least trade out 1, but it is Houston that now takes possession of the zone. A little bit of back and forth action early on, Neato. Neither team quite getting the upper hand in this game yet.
And I get the feeling you're going to see a lot of that. If that score from the entrance exam game is going to tell us anything, is that this game is going to be ugly. It's not going to be very smooth for either team. So what we're seeing at the beginning here may not be too much of a surprise.
Houston starting to get a better grip of this zone bit by bit, doing a great job of working through the scoreboard, and a huge play there from it looked like Boober and Complete, able to find a nice stagger, 3 down effectively, and Houston looking for a potential knockout, but it's going to be the 2 more members of Houston trying to hold on, and no, not going to be the case unless Cheeseballs is able to make a big play. We will get a flip of the zone. Georgia Tech back in control.
What a play that would have been too, DRF. I mean, Cheeseballs all on their own, almost takes out at least one other player with them, but ultimately a 3-1 can only go in so many directions before it goes south. But at least we have GT Gold currently taking advantage of it, but not for long though.
Yeah, at the very least, they slap on that 66-point penalty, but they're not able to work through their own, as now Taco's possibly going to go down. No, actually Taco survives the Booyah Bomb. That was point blank range, so it's going to turn this into a neutral game. Both teams holding a zone. Georgia Tech going to be able to flip the zone for a little bit in their favor, but Cheeseball's able to find a nice one pick there, possibly two. They get the second, looking for a third. They're going to pop out the special Cheeseballs. Oh my goodness.
There's nothing cheesy about what we just saw there. That is spectacular work from the Slosher player for the Houston Cougars. That is incredible work that we've just seen. And I can come up with all the words into the source, but you just have to see it for yourself there.
Oh, yeah, a huge play in what really should have been an opportunity for Georgia Tech to get back into this game. Houston now running away with it on the cusp of trying to get out of this penalty, but two members going down. Cheeseball is going to have to back up just a little bit, see if they can just maintain their position, and they will maintain possession of the zone. But now two down on either side. Neato, right now, this is a bit of a bloodbath. Both teams just getting really chippy with each other.
I mean, it is what I kind of going out at the beginning. This is going to be very rough between both teams, and I'm not surprised that we're seeing the best play we've seen so far is Cheeseball's going on an absolute tear, but even then, it hasn't been pretty for Houston. I mean, they're still trying to work their way back in the lead. In fact, Georgia Tech is getting this much closer to getting the lead themselves.
Yeah, they are out of the penalty. They've added on 20 points, but it looks like they're going to have to give up the zones here unless Solstice is able to come with a big play. No, going to be part of a trade there. Three members going down on the side of Georgia Tech. Yellow Jackets going back to spawn. So it's Houston that once again picks up control of the zone. Not a whole lot of penalty for them to have to work through going into the final minute, Neato. So Houston with a solid upper hand in the late game.
Oh my goodness, if it's going to be anyone, it has to be Solstice on that decapitator there. Could open up the floodgates for Georgia Tech. There's already two picks. Might see a third one coming out of the way here. Yes, we do. It's a delayed wipe for Georgia Tech, and they have the zones ready as well. What they're going to do next is going to be crucial. They only have 20 seconds to turn this game around.
Yeah, but at the very least, Houston, they might have gotten wiped there, but they actually took quite a few members of GT with them. It took quite a while for Georgia Tech to get control of the zones, and now find themselves two members down in the closing 10 seconds. Cheeseball's trying to get the closing pick as well. One more Zipcaster in a game that was just absolutely dominant from Houston and Cheeseball. Georgia Tech doing a great job of hanging around, but the minute Houston got away, they never looked back.
Well, housekeepers of America, look away. This is going to be the dirtiest match you see in all of possibly week one. I mean, that was, like you said, a bloodbath throughout the rest of the set. And if there was any particular highlight we had to point out, it has to be this one. Cheeseball's going on an absolute tear. First with the slosher, then pulls out the Zipcaster for added movement for good measure, and it works out beautifully there. But even then, after this one play, it was still lots of back and forth. Back and forth is going to be the phrase you hear all game, all set long.
Yeah, I am certainly anticipating it because, as you had mentioned earlier, Neato, these two teams were pretty closely matched in entrance exam. So I am fully anticipating that this set will be just as competitive. So it is H-Town that does get the early upper hand in game one. Looks like we are actually very quickly getting into game number two. So both of these teams know exactly what they want. I'm anticipating to see not really any changes other than, I guess, possibly Toast here.
And there's also another change from H-Town Rebels. That's two sloshers, one slosher deco, and one vanilla slosher. So, interesting pick to say the least. I have yet to see a double slosher comp since the Black Belly skate park days, but here we are. And, I mean, what more can you expect from H-Town, all right? We already have the Glugas. There's only so much you can expect from them.
Yeah, the double slosher comp that was so crucial in that last game makes its return. And I'm really excited to see how this continues to play out because it did play out very well for Houston despite it being really obscure combination that you really don't see anywhere else. But once again, getting a little bit chippy in the beginning. Both teams just trying to find fights wherever they can, see if they can get the upper hand, and a nice chip pick there from the blaster, trying to help their teammates find the way to the checkpoint. Has to back out for those strikes. finally going to see if there's a slight path here, Neato. But once again, these teams just playing a game of chip damage.
I mean, it almost seems like you're gonna Taco finds a way to make that Rapid Blaster connect each and every time they go for a shot, and I'm honestly kind of surprised with what I saw there. Solstice once again leading the way for Georgia Tech, no surprise there, but it's now Georgia Tech commanding this game. I mean, they've already made it past the first pedestal, and now you have a Crab in excellent position here. You're gonna see a lot of points go towards the way of the Yellow Jackets.
Oh, and down to 18 remaining. A massive opening push there from Georgia Tech. It took them a little bit to finally reach that checkpoint, but once they did, the combination of that bubble and getting the 2-for-2 situation really enabled them to make that push.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's no surprise, again, that we're seeing that sort of combination. Everyone knows their roles so well. Everyone plays them so well to the point where they're all operating off one another. You can see the Rapid Blaster working with the Commentator, trying to clear a path for him. And it's still, and actually funny enough, we're going back to this whole one-on-ones just about everywhere on the map that you can point out. Anywhere you can put a finger on, you're going to see a 1v1. In fact, now that Complete's going up to the middle here. Now Cheeseball stuck in the middle with this Crab. It's going to be dangerous for Huge-Town, and there's a few more picks actually going towards Georgia Tech.
Fascinating, because what stood out to me right there was that Georgia Tech actually had a two-person advantage, and Complete was in a very vulnerable spot, backed out a very risky jump from Cheeseballs that actually came in pretty safely, and suddenly Houston turns this around, finds Georgia Tech 2 down, clears the checkpoint, alas, with very little problem there, and now they're looking to add more, but no, the Rainmaker's gonna reset. But Neato, I think they're actually okay right now, because look at how far into the base they are, plus a wipeout!
I was saying, look at Complete, and now that 18 remaining lead is nothing because H-Town comes in and says, all right, we'll bring it up to 7. Now, I was saying at the beginning, Complete's taking a flank to the right of your screen. That is going to be crucial for whatever happens next because that Booyah Bomb that came afterwards was perfect. The setup with the Crab that Georgia Tech had, it would have worked in any other scenario, but not here, Complete with an excellent call there.
Oh, and Cheeseballs continuing where they left off in the last game. The first half, definitely, they were trying to find some of these entry points, weren't able to get there, but the second half is a different story as Cheeseballs continues their reign of terror, and now it's Houston that continues to swarm the Yellow Jackets right around their checkpoint, making it so difficult for them to get back into mid as we close in on a minute remaining.
And if anyone's going to repeat what Complete did earlier, it might just be Solstice. They also have that bubbler ready, but maybe too soon there because two players from H-Town able to catch that just as soon as it came up. So with H-Town and how well they've been able to do, even with numbers advantages coming in from Georgia Tech, Houston, all they have to do is hold this in mid, keep this Rainmaker safe and out of harm's way. And with the amount of players that are able to make such incredible one-on-one plays from the Rebels, I'm not surprised if this Rainmaker goes nowhere.
Oh, and Taco's able to get a nice pick there with the Crab. That's going to be a two-person advantage now for Georgia Tech. So with the cooler active still as well, trying to get rid of Cheeseballs, they're able to force them to just dance around. Finally, they're going to get them on the recall. 15 seconds to play, 45 on the Rainmaker itself. They're going to have to find one massive wipeout here to be able to secure the lead. And here we go, Neato, into overtime.
And overtime it is for these teams. Notice that Georgia Tech has yet to move past this pedestal, but I get the feeling we're going to see it come soon. If it happens soon, it's not going to be because Solstice goes down. That was huge, but so was the slosher play from Houston coming up from the top rope, it seemed, getting another win for the Rebels.
Wow, a great game defined by two big pushes. Every time they were both in mid, it was just back and forth, waiting to see which team was going to get the upper hand, and both had their opportunity to shine. It's just that Houston got a little bit further with the help of this wipeout. Georgia Tech did a fantastic job on their push, but were never able to find that crucial wipeout themselves.
DRF, kind of surprised that this is only 2-0. Like, I mean, let's look at the rest of these
Feels like it should be
matchups.
3-3, huh?
It feels like we're already at the playoff stage of the season, and yet we're seeing the best come out of both of these teams in week 1. Like, what's going on here? What kind of like alternate universe I just step into?
Hey, honestly, low key, I do wish that this was a best of 9 for these two teams. I think that they're already really close with each other, and even though Houston has found more opportunities, they have been just a little bit more dominant. GT Gold is just a step behind, so they're always in striking distance. So they just need to figure out, what needs to change on their end to be able to have that more dominant push, have that opportunity to find a wipeout, because we really haven't quite seen that out of them yet. 2 games in, but Neato, we're already ready to go to game number 3, Tower Control Museum. Take a look at these comps.
All right, going straight back into it. No major changes for Georgia Tech, and no major changes for Houston either. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And none of these are certainly broke for either side, so not surprised that we're seeing this come out from both teams. In fact, what I am surprised to see is a two down situation for Georgia Tech. Houston coming in all guns blazing, and if Cheeseballs has anything to say about it, may have been a delayed triple there, but no, it's a Rapid Blaster that's going to come away with that fight.
And forcing the edit to reposition, backing off of the tower. They do get that first checkpoint, so it is going to be a big opportunity here. Actually, now for Georgia Tech with the 3 down to be able to try to respond with a checkpoint of their own, but Toast on the edit, taking the flank. Oh, when do you see the flanking edit?
What is up with Houston? I mean, their comps were already very unorthodox to see from these teams, but the flank there, I am much less expecting coming from a headed, but what that means is that we did get to see, 1, we got to saw a very nice play, and 2, Georgia Tech is able to take that pick and try to run with this, what this may bring for him. That 1 pick on a Boo Boo may definitely help out. That bubble will certainly help out as well, and like that, they have the lead. Great stuff here from Georgia Tech, working these phases of the push, and knowing when to pop special, knowing when exactly to move forward, working out well for him.
Complete on the flank, able to shut down the Tower Rider before they could clear that second checkpoint. This is a fairly long checkpoint here that Georgia Tech is now going to try to push through with that second pick. This will be the checkpoint for free. So a little bit of early contention there, but Neato, it looks like Georgia Tech is on a roll now as they approach the 3rd and final checkpoint.
Oh my god, could we finally see a game where 2 players, I mean, where both teams have one on a map? That would be surprising, but it wouldn't be surprising what we've been seeing from both of these teams so far. Solstice very nearly cleared that, but Tacos with 2 burst bombs actually does take that 2v1. That is incredible work. All they have to do is look forward to this one. Drop from Cheeseballs, and that's another one. Here's another one. The Blue Doolies does also get that one as well. Tacos, what are we doing? There's another one with an assist. It had to come to an end eventually, but my goodness, it's not going to lead to a KO unless Houston has anything to say about it, and they do.
Oh, they were right there. Super Mario going to try to hold on to their position here. Not going to be able to do it. It's just a rapid. Tacos quickly back into the action now. 1 point remaining. They literally just needed to breathe on the tower, and it was going to be a knockout. Houston holds on for dear life. They have 2 minutes now to respond, take this tower coast to coast, and secure the knockout.
We don't have time to do play-by-play commentary in this game. It seems like there's always something happening, and by the time I stop talking, there's going to be another player that goes on a tear. And that was nearly Tacos with a pick from a burst bomb again, but we're going to continue with this Georgia Tech push instead.
Georgia Tech back in the driver's seat after letting the tower reset. Tacos now on the crab tank, trying to see who's taking their teammates down behind, but it's Complete and Boo Boo, a 1-2 punch, taking out the rest of GT Gold. So, one more time, Houston now trying to reset this tower again, but every time they do so, Neato, it costs them 2 of their members.
Right, and it's because of what Talk has been able to do with his weapons, what everyone has been able to do with these weapons from Georgia Tech. I mean, you mentioned burst damage, or you mentioned chip damage earlier. Look at the chip damage we're seeing now. Leo Fotia on this Rapid Blaster doing incredible work, getting a double.
Wow, a minute to go. Tacos back on plat with the rest of the team in tow, but two of them are gonna go down, forcing the backup here. Going ahead and calling out the complete flake once again. Making a triple. Almost a quad, but they'll happily take it with the assist there. Solstice cleaning up the final pick.
That's worthy of a double bang call from the one and only Mike Breen. I'm surprised he's not here. Would have loved to see that, but he might also not understand what Splatoon is. Solstice going for a 1v1 on Toast. Toast having to find higher ground. Solstice in lots of trouble there. Almost escaped with that. I was almost escaped with their lives there, but Cheeseball has been the story, been the player of the game last game. Could we see something come out of them here? It's certainly going to have to come out of them now with 5 seconds to go and overtime approaching.
It's a 2v2 situation. It's just Cheeseballs now. Complete trying to get back in the action, but not fast enough. GT Gold gets on the board in game 3.
Well, it's finally, there's no 0 on the scoreboard, so I think we're finally seeing the matches translate to the scoreboard. I think we can finally get rid of that one cliche where we say, well, the score doesn't tell the whole story. Well, now it does, because both of these teams have gone back and forth over and over again. However, DRF, this is a game in which this looked a lot more yellow, a lot more Georgia Techy, if I had to say.
I believe their colors are yellow, so you know what? That does make a lot of sense. GT Gold definitely leaving their mark in game number 3. I mean, the double for the blaster there was absolutely filthy. Tacos had a number of massive plays themselves. I really thought they were going to get the quad here. That was going to pop off for them. But Solstice coming in to clean up the final pick, and Tacos going down themselves. But, nonetheless, a great team effort there from GT Gold. It seemed like everybody had a big play to contribute to that near knockout.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Look, if we go back to Georgia Tech's roster for a minute, Tacos is part of Boyo, a current Ludi Div 1 team, and then the other Taco, currently named Leo Fotia, has experience in this sort of +3 category. So when we see this type of team play coming out from these players, I'm not exactly surprised, but what I am surprised about is the burst bomb plays that I'm seeing from Tacos.
Well, it seems like both of these teams, Neato, I don't think there's ever a need to talk about the comps anymore, because both of these teams know exactly who they're running, what weapons they're running, and it's almost a game of chicken. They know that they could win with these comps against each other. They're waiting to see the other team make an adjustment, and almost as a sign of weakness of like, hey, we are all ready to double down with these compositions, with these weapons. You make the first move. And I think that's actually really fascinating to see here, as again, an early game, both teams playing with a lot of chip damage, finding just picks in stray areas of the map.
And now Complete here going to the side with these Glugadoolies. We saw how dangerous they could be in the second match on Rainmaker Ramen, so wondering what they can do with this weapon here. There's one pick on Tacos, a player that's been very valuable to Georgia Tech. Another one on Solstice, another player who's been valuable for Georgia Tech's side. And not much you hear from the rest of the team, but the Boo Boo is going to have these power clam here. Boo Boo themselves being a member of Katamari Damacy, a team that was Division 2 in the circuit last season, so want to see what comes out from them. But my goodness, all of these teams, all of these players coming out and contributing to this matchup, and it's still scoreless, even though we had 1 to 2 power clams near that Georgia Tech basket.
Again, these teams just finding picks left and right. 3 down on the side of Georgia Tech, but it's the Rapid that's able to help slow down the potential Houston push, but not enough to prevent the first score of the game. But Neato, this should be a one and done push, as Georgia Tech with an excellent defense to minimize the damage.
And that's good for Georgia Tech. You at least minimize the blows that basket opening brings you, and you also have an opportunity to come out with something of your own. It is going to take that power clam and just a little bit more change to get on the leading bus of this game, but luckily the fares aren't that high for Georgia Tech. Of course, Houston, though, is going to try to provide some roadblocks to prevent this bus from going anywhere.
2 down on either side, a very familiar position for both of these teams as Toast gets their teammates to jump in to hold up the defensive front, doing an excellent job there. Multiple members on the side of Georgia Tech looking a little weak here. This could turn into a big push out of Georgia Tech, but of course, as long as one member is up, Georgia Tech is going to put on a stellar defense and is able to find 2 in retaliation. Huge play, but Complete now getting it on the action. They're going to go 1 for 1. Oh, Neato, I love this so much.
And now is a perfect opening for H-Town as well. There were 2 players on 1 player of Georgia Tech, but then Tacos, of course, who else with the burst bombs contributing and making sure that 2v1 becomes a 2v2, the best option for Georgia Tech. And now with 1 player left stranded on the grates, 2 of them from Houston now going down. This is a tremendous opening for Georgia Tech. It should be leading to the lead and more.
But the question is, how much more? They get the 1+1, but Neato, a stellar defense from Houston this time to prevent the damage. They do lose the lead, but a 1+1 in that position is almost as good as you can get. You know, maybe you just try it. You wish that you probably had that 1 little clam back, but with a minute and a half to go, there's still plenty of time. 1 power clam will secure Houston the lead.
Now, if I've been on the side of ugly matchups, I've been on the side of complete sweeps, both sides, and I know where this is going. This is one heck of a matchup. I think we leave all types of skill on the floor and leave some some splat bombs on the floor as well. Why don't you, Houston? That's the sort of defense that's going to get them further, but maybe not as far as they would like because Georgia Tech has already opened the basket once more.
And this time they do find a lot more points. Not a significant amount, but enough to force Houston to have to figure out a sustainable push or a 2 power clam jump in. That's pretty much the options that Houston has to work with here in the closing 30 seconds. And it's going to start with a cheese ball Zipcaster once again able to help find 1, but now it's GT that has to hold on to the defense here, and a great pick on the Rapid and the Pro should enable Houston to dive on in with a potential game-winning push, but where is the power clam?
Where is the power clam? In order to get on the bus, you have to have money to get on the bus. I'm sorry, there's no free rides where we're going. Cheeseballs has some fare. Isn't enough for a nice little bus ride? Perhaps you have 3 players down on Georgia Tech. Solstice is the only one left to defend this, and that is certainly enough to get the lead. But no, you need somebody else putting in that last quarter in. Is anyone else there to put the quarter in? No, that actually is Boo Boo coming in at the last second.
I was wondering where they were because I saw a little 5 at the top of the screen. I was thinking, I'm like, did they get the jump in time? And the answer was yes. I was starting to panic on behalf of Houston. They had the clams up, but like, where were they? And they got it there right in time, right before the parking meter expired to throw in the last quarter.
Remember, there's no free rides in competitive Splatoon, and Houston, thankfully, gets a quarter in before the bus doors close, and they are 1 station closer to victory. They have the match point here, but let's just talk about this last push here. It has been essentially a microcosm of what the rest of this matchup has been. Both of these teams bringing out the best out of one another, but even though Tacos comes in with a monumental effort, Boo Boo just needs to jump in, throw another clam into the clam basket. Sorry, you lost a match.
Yeah, that was absolute cinema of a game of crab leg clam blitz. So I was very much on the edge of my seat all game long. Again, these 2 teams so good at just going punch for punch with each other. You know, Houston manages to get the 1 and done at the start. GT Gold responds with a 1+1 and then follows that up with a little bit of a bigger push. But like we said, Neato, it wasn't anything that was insurmountable. Houston did exactly what they needed to do. They cut it a little bit close, but they did exactly what they needed to do to secure the victory and put themselves on the brink of their first set win of the season.
I also need to point this out very quickly. Boo Boo was on a Division 2 team last season with Katamahi Damacy, and many of the Div 2 teams from the circuit we've seen go to Div 2 and Div 3 in the league. So for a player like that to get the call up to a Div 1 team and come in clutch like that is incredible stuff to see. I want to see more of that. Let's see where this match goes. I'm afraid it's only match point, but it's still a very close matchup here as we head to Splat Zone's Urchin.
Game number 5, and we'd finally see some adjustments out of both teams. Tacos pivoting over to the mini Splatling, something that is pretty typical to see here on Splat Zone's Urchin. Meanwhile, Houston bringing out the heavy Splatling with the paint buff and the Splat Dualies.
And so this is huge, what we're seeing from both sides, and I'm not surprised that we see a cooler weapon. Whoa! Stop talking about the comps. What was that? What are we looking at here? We're gonna play with the hammer.
That was absolutely disgusting out of Tacos in the best way possible. They're going for 4. Oh, shit, I think they thought they had 2 there again.
It very nearly was too. I think it's because of the match geometry. That's the only reason you don't get 2 picks there. But Tacos, have yourself a day. I may as well not try. I try not to confuse Tacos and Taco. But either way, both of these players have been contributing greatly to their sides. And I'm surprised that Houston already has to put as some semblance of control here. But it might not last too long.
Ghost now, the last member of Houston, retreating, trying to make sure they don't go down to the chip damage that is provided by this blaster. And the blaster going to do a great job here, just holding mid, trying to be able to barely reach those ledges to keep themselves safe, but slow down the push of Houston. Houston, though, finally 3 members of Georgia Tech and will flip this zone.
And once again, not surprised. It's back and forth once more. 64-70 from both sides. It's quite literally 6 points separating both of them. In fact, Houston gets the lead here. And that was Tacos. You can't do that again. Not this time, says Houston, as one player from Houston backs up. But essentially looking at this, they've got control of the zone complete. Going for another flank here. This is dangerous. Has been the word for complete every time they've look for this flank, but Solstice spots it. Solstice knows what's coming here and what might happen. Unfortunately, no one here from Houston to help with this crab painting the zone. Georgia Tech's continue to hold on.
Georgia Tech down to 30 remaining, plus the jump out. And when you're this close to a knockout, that certainly spells danger for Houston. They need to make a move and fast to get back to the zone. The trip strikes out just a little bit early, but almost out of necessity, given that this is going to be a knockout for Georgia Tech. Just too little, too late. GT Gold once again closing the gap to a 1-game difference.
I'm starting to get hints of Game 3 all over again, because Game 3 was that one matchup that we saw Georgia Tech take over for a majority of the matchup here. The only difference is this time it ends in a KO win, not in a knockout win for Georgia Tech. Once again, Tacos with the double here. I mean, we have to look at it on replay. I mean, what is this? Like, what? At some point, this just becomes target practice for Hammer. Whatever. Anyway, no, not surprised. This has ended the same way that Game 3 has, because there's always one in which Georgia Tech just comes in, doesn't even sneak it, just goes wild like a bull in a china shop, and then gets another win. This time it's a knockout.
Yeah, and Tacos had themselves a field day there with the hammer, providing, the key highlight of the game there in game number 5. So 3-2, Neato. This is almost as close as you could ask for, other than going to potential game 7 should GT Gold win Rainmaker Scorch Gorge, which is on deck.
As a commentator, I understand I'm not supposed to be biased, but I do want to see that Game 7 happen. I mean, these matches, most of these matches have been too close for us to not see a Game 7. I mean, obviously, Game 5 is going to tell you otherwise. That was a complete wash for Georgia Tech. No thanks to these amazing hammer plays we saw from Tacos. And I want to say some great observational skills from Solstice. They're spawning the flank from the dualies on the side of Houston. That could have been very dangerous. You've seen how dangerous it's been in the last few games of this set. So, want to see what Scorch brings, but I'm all for a Game 7. So, if either of those teams want to work that out, just be my guest.
Well, the spectators that have no stake in either team can certainly hope for. Houston hoping to close this one out here and now on Rainmaker Scorch Gorge. Once again, we are seeing pivots back to what we had seen the rest of the set. So that was a very specific Urchin Zones composition that both teams made adjustments for. But we are back to the splash. We are back to the Galugas heavy edit double slosher combo. You know what? I'm all for it. These teams know exactly what they want.
And I suppose that's fair, right? I mean, Urchin Zones is unfortunately a map mode combination you don't see often in competitive Splatoon, and these teams and players know competitive Splatoon very well, given their individual experience. So I'm not surprised that they went with something a little more experimental, or at least different from what they usually run. But once again, back to the basics here, back to this double slosher comp that has worked so well for Houston. It's gotten them to match point, and hopefully get them further. Maybe with this triple, it certainly will.
Well, this should be the first checkpoint, but if there's anything that we've learned, it's that as long as one member is up on either team, nothing is for sure, as it takes Toast just a second there to be able to clear the checkpoint, and they will find a pick as well before going down themselves. Houston in the driver's seat, but no, it's a wipeout! GT Gold ready to make their own push.
Okay, same story, same verse, second verse, same as the first. What? We're not too surprised, surely, dear. Surely we're not too surprised, but Georgia Tech has to get this past mid in order to get anything going. From what I've seen from the rest of this matchup, it's going to take an arm, a leg, and the rest of the bones and the human skeleton to get this past mid. As we're seeing here, Tacos trying to work with what works best at Crab, but Boo Boo, with the strikes, shuts that down instantly.
The numbers stay even, but Boo Boo finds the decav, looking for another pick there. Will take down the pro. Cheese Balls takes the jump, and now Houston is finding an opportunity to pick up where they left off, and they should be adding some more points to the board, but there's a little bit of hesitancy in this push. Now they're in a position where they just want to see how many points they can score, able to find one and no additional points, Neato. And even though that they had the stagger, they had the numbers advantage, but again, time and time again, as long as one person is up from the other team, they have just been producing clutch defense after clutch defense.
Leo Foti, have yourself a day, and I thought you had enough with that one animated movie that went quite nearly triple platinum, at least in my heart. But my goodness, 3 players down. Super Mario has nothing but open grass in front of him. This is incredible stuff. If they already break to this checkpoint, and hopefully it's not just Commentator's curse here, but maybe
watch these trip strikes
with the drop, with the splat bomb, these strikes are at least able to slow things down. Super Mario has to go for something very crazy here, but doesn't have the capacity to do so. Goes down. Solstice is the only one to stop that, and it's Houston's Rainmaker yet again.
Those trip strikes out of the slosher were absolutely massive for Houston to hold on to the lead, because without the trip strikes, they don't put up that smoke screen to slow down GT Gold. GT Gold had to wait, and all of Houston moved up with it to hold on to this lead. And with how close these two teams have been, and like how much they've had to be able to rely on big wipeouts to get big pushes going, that could have been huge. But of course, as I say that, this is the lead swap back into GT Gold's favor. Their first lead of the game, down to 30 remaining. This could be the game-winning push, Neato.
And this is the same story as Rainmaker Ramen DRF. I mean, we see one team come out with a great push, and then the other team comes out with an even better push. So 50 seconds left. Getting a sense of deja vu here. Not surprised, especially with Solstice on the side here. If it gets Toast, that's horrible. Oh my goodness. Then Toast goes down. We've got a game 7. We've got a game 7.
I'm sorry, hold on. Run that back. I looked away for about 2 seconds. When did they manage to push back up and grab that Rainmaker? I thought for sure that Rainmaker was going to reset.
And it should have. It should have. It was this close to actually resetting. It almost seemed like that Rainmaker shield was there long enough because it knew if it stays up, we're going to get a game 7, especially since I called it out here. If Toast went down, the floodgates are open. Cheese Balls looks to be in a different time zone in this replay. Just enough for Georgia Tech to get this KO. Ladies and gentlemen, grab your dinner, grab your popcorn, grab whatever you need. We're going to game 7.
First game 7 alert of the season. Everybody call your grandma. Get them into the Twitch chat because it is hype. Div 1 game 7 opening weekend of the CCA League. You really can't ask for much more.
Okay. TC Inkblot. Georgia Tech. Last time we went to tower control, Georgia Tech took this one very coolly, very calmly. Almost got the KO. That game 3, remember, that could have been a KO. Was 1 point away from being a KO. But this is an H-Town team that has been coming in all guns blazing. Maybe that Rainmaker game was a little more shaky for him just because it seemed like Georgia Tech was able to shut them down any opportunity they can. But we have to remember that at one point, H-Town was able to hold Georgia Tech back long enough that they weren't able to get past that middle area. It was only when they started breaking that pedestal that they started to claim more land in Houston's territory.
Now, I would almost even say that it's not even worth looking at what has happened in the set so far, because both these teams have split the Splat Zones games. They've split the Rainmaker games. And GT Gold did win the tower control. Houston won Clam Blitz. So going back to tower control, you could say, hey, GT Gold did win the first one. They should be favored here. But they've also split the other 2 modes that we've seen twice already. So maybe that's a sign that this goes towards Houston. It really, it could go either way. I think it's just, futile effort here to try to predict anything. The only thing that we can predict, Neato, is that the comps are staying the same.
Death taxes this team having almost nearly no switches, save for that one Urchin Zones game, but it almost seems like a fluke from what we've seen from the rest of it. In fact, that was almost the only KO win until we got to game 6, but Georgia Tech, University of Houston, coming together to create what has been a phenomenal matchup on just week 1, and we're looking at lots of aggression actually from Complete there on the side of Houston. Another one from Cheese Balls as well. That's a double. Could it be a triple? Talker's in a lot of trouble. A wipeout within almost the first 3 seconds of the game.
Oh, this is gonna be a different type of game, Neato. I can tell you that much. As we are 45 seconds into the game, and Houston is down to 33 on the scoreboard. I have not seen that fast of a push in a long time on tower control, nonetheless. And they find the stagger. They're continuing this push. They should get some more points on the board. The question is, can GT Gold stop any of the bleeding?
I've never seen a push like this on tower control Inkblot, and we've had this map and mode combination for 2 games straight. We're this close to a KO, but with players going down left and right for the Rebels, it almost looks like it's not going, it definitely looks like it's not going to happen. They're not going to get past this 3rd checkpoint, but they have 2 already out of the way. It's huge for Houston. I mean, they have almost nothing that stands in their way when they reach this 3rd checkpoint once again. So with the gloves coming off for both of these teams, and with how much control they have in this bats area, things are looking incredible for Houston.
Yeah, like, at this point, I don't even know if Houston Houston might actually have more paint in the GT Gold bats than their own spawn right now. That's just how aggressive they are being, as our spectator goes to verify. And yes, that really does seem to be the case. Houston just coming out into this game, the first half absolutely dominating with just such ferocity. They don't want to be, up 3-1 and ultimately lose this set.
This is a boxing match. We're down to the final round. All the judges' scorecards have this at a split decision, but Houston wants to make sure it's unanimous. Georgia Tech, though, still coming in with all the fight in the world as Toast nearly goes down to Solstice. Toast opts to stay alive instead, as though it was a choice. Toast there working their way towards winning that fight, but Georgia Tech notably has only gotten past 91 remaining. Tacos has set this crab up in a very precarious spot there. They're able to get cheese balls down. It would be huge. And just with the crab alone, smushes them down. And there's more possibly coming their way. But actually looking at their numbers, Georgia Tech's already 3 players down again.
They are, and they don't get the first checkpoint. A huge blow to Georgia Tech's campaign for a comeback. And it's Houston, once again, the aggressors. 3 specials online. They can do some serious damage here, Neato.
And there is lots and lots of open land, at least in terms of checkpoints. Georgia Tech certainly isn't going to make it easy, though. Tacos needs to start working this once they can get that crab in. That's what's been working out so well, working with that crab. I mean, these players know how to work with each other so well, especially on the side of chip damage. If it's anyone, it's going to be Leo Futia there, who certainly knows a thing or two about chip damage, but nothing has been manifesting for Georgia Tech so far. Houston still pushing this tower forward, but Tacos at least able to put a stop. 3 players already going down. This could be a wipeout if it's any help from Leo, if it's any help from Solstice, but no, Cheese Balls instead opts to jump back onto this tree, currently slowing down the bleed for Houston as Georgia Tech continues to push this tower.
Tacos sees a cluster 3 players, is able to find 2 of them, and that is a delayed wipe. Under a minute to play, GT Gold, it took them 4 minutes to finally find their push, and they are gonna make it count. Let's see how far they can go as we close in on 15 points remaining for this lead. 30 seconds to play. Tacos making a play here, not gonna be able to find it. Solstice pops the bubble at such a crucial time. If they get to pick on Boo Boo, which they do, they're gonna go ahead and continue this push. Need 20 seconds to play. It's gonna come down to these last couple of picks.
Tacos, what can you do? Not much. Complete is able to get you down very quickly there. Super Mario stands down for a little bit. When, as soon as you notice it, I'm making random noises. There's a wipeout on your screen, and Houston can have this on lock right here. Nobody nearby for Georgia Tech. Unless Solstice has anything to say about it, shut down almost immediately. A Game 7 thriller going to the side of Houston.
Oh my goodness. And absolutely bonkers end to this set. Wow. We could not have asked for a better opening weekend match than GT Gold and the H-Town Rebels. Delivered on all fronts. Houston surviving the late game scare to win week 1.
And what a scare it was, too. I mean, looking at the positioning there, it looked like Tacos had a perfect spot with the crab. Leo Futil was down and close enough to where they can easily chip away at any player from Houston, especially the Edit, who is doing lots of heavy lifting for Houston already. So this was an excellent setup for Georgia Tech, and there's a good reason Houston had to be scared there, but just as soon as it started to look like things were starting to come together, Georgia Tech was going to be able to take this one away at the nick of time. Houston comes away and steals a victory from the jaws of defeat.
You know Houston has to be breathing a massive sigh of relief because they controlled this tower control Game 7 for 4 minutes. 4 minutes that it took for GT Gold to find any semblance of a push. And they made it count. But when you hold control for 4 minutes, it certainly you have to make it count. They did. They managed to build up a lead big enough to hold off just such a fantastic effort by GT Gold. It was just just too little right there at the very end. But they certainly gave it their all.
Okay, let me emphasize a point that I made earlier in this set that I feel the need to make now. This is week 1. This is a playoff. This should have been a playoff game. I swear to you, we might just see this 1.5 months from now, but this is week 1.
Yeah, it's week
what
1.
Are we doing?
I mean, we knew this was going to be a fun matchup. I know that I've been saying that this is going to be one of the most competitive Division 1s that we have seen in years. And if this is any indication in which this division is going to go, buckle up, folks, because this season is going to be a roller coaster.
And the good news about this channel too is that we have, if you like this Division 1 matchup, the good news is that we have 2 of them coming your way tomorrow. I mean, there's EAUCD White currently taking on Rochester, Orange Ocean, the best team that they're bringing out to this, and then we have so much lined up for them. Husky Splatoon Knights Violet versus UCSD Gold, 2 old guards coming together. There's so much Div 1 action to look forward to tomorrow. And then more, 2, 3, 4, 5 playoffs. There's no chance for you to catch your breath. I'm sorry. I'm going to warn you right now, chat. There's no chance.
Honestly, part of me wonders that if we were to implement, make it best of 7, but win by 2 like you would in, table tennis or something like that. How long would these teams actually go? This realistically could turn into a 10, 11, 12, 13 game set if you had to win by 2. Let's just Valorant rules. Why don't we do that next time? I genuinely think that these 2 teams could have been going for another hour before we saw someone take a 2-game advantage.
Honestly, we might as well just switch to boxing. The way boxing is scored, let's just have 3 judges, you, me, and a third on the side, and then we'll have our own scorecards. At the end of the day, we'll talk about whoever won on split decision or unanimous decision, because to me, Houston wins this in split decision, I think 9 out of 10 times. This is incredible work from both of these teams, and I just love what we were able to see on week 1 alone.
Well, Neato, we do have the H-Town Rebels, a couple of their members that are ready to join us here for an interview. So let's go ahead and bring them on in, and we can ask them a couple of questions here about the set that we just watched. Welcome in, Toast and Cheese Balls, to the broadcast.
Hey.
Hello. Well, first of all, congratulations on a thrilling 7-game victory. That was such an all-timer of an opening weekend match. I must say it was quite a pleasure to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah, a little bit too close for comfort, in my opinion.
You tell me.
But yeah,
And I'm
we
not even
locked in
playing.
at the last game. Yeah.
I know, I was on the edge of my seat. This was ready to go either way. But let's kind of go a little bit earlier into the match. You all get off to a pretty strong start. Game 1 and 2 looked a little bit more decidedly in your favor, despite some great opening pushes there by GT Gold. What was kind of the mentality going, from game to game? Well, I guess let's just even go even further back. What was the mentality going into this set, knowing that you all had been previously close with GT Gold?
Well, we knew that the biggest problem against our composition is definitely the Range Blaster Pro. I forgot what it's called. No, it's not.
Rapid
Blaster Pro. Yes. That's the biggest problem, since it's just counters all the weapons.
Yeah.
But I think we closed the gap a lot with Cheese's Zip.
We'll get to that
And-
in a second, because
Yeah.
I definitely have some things about the cheeseball zipcasters.
No, yeah. He's definitely been the biggest propagandist with that, and I've been convinced too. Honestly, it's a really great weapon.
Well, I
But-
would argue it's very convincing. Yeah.
Yeah. I was against it at one point, but now that I've seen it like actually do good, it's pretty impressive.
I'm slowly changing everybody's mind on the team. They all were doubters at first, but I've changed their minds.
Well, I mean, let's lead into that a little bit. Yeah, tell us about the double bucket comp, because normally, first of all, if you do see like double bucket, it might be like a slosher try slosher, or like a slosher, I guess machine back in the earlier days. But you all run a double slosher, one of them being the deco. What is the thought process behind a comp like that?
Yeah, so I have a lot of hours in on the Slosher Deco, because before I did college Splatoon, I played like some weird off meta stuff known as Hyper Dive or the Strange. But
Oh.
I've since been reformed, and I joined H-Town Rebels last semester, and we were trying a bunch of stuff. Like, I tried to be a flex player, and I tried like Wiper, and that didn't work out. I tried V-Slosh, but I think I always felt really uncomfortable on strikes since it was so vulnerable, and the splat bomb taking so much of your ink tank. It really felt like it slowed me down. Having like a cheap zipcaster to keep pushing up, a cheap dart to keep myself active, really helped the pace of my play kind of match what I was used to in my old days. That's kind of my rationale for the. It's also just it looks really cool.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I do have a question for y'all, and this is something I brought up earlier in the set. Now, Boo Boo is a player that was on Kanabahi Damacy in the CCA circuit season, was on a Div 2 team, did get the call up for this Div 1 team, the H-Town Rebel squad, and obviously they came in clutch in that Clams crab leg match. That one Clam needed to seal the deal for y'all, which, by the way, that was a matchup in which our producer, Neptune, fell out of their chair with that ending, so I don't know, do with that what you will, but I also wanted to ask, how much has Boo Boo been able to contribute to y'all's team ever since getting that call up?
Yeah, she's been great.
Yeah, they've been really good. I think one of the biggest things with double bucket is that it really opens them up, since you don't want to be behind cover against the bucket, which allows me to get a clear sight and just kill them with my edit.
Like, I know I was worried going into the semester with Dio graduating, because Dio was such a strong asset to the team last semester.
Right.
But, Boo Boo's really been pulling her weight. She's not a slacker at all. Like, very strong bucket.
Awesome.
You should
Oh
do
well,
that.
a little off tangent with that last game when they fell off the chair. So my teammate Will decides to go in front of his wall and die to the decab when he has 4 clams. Just want to put that out there. And I was about to strangle him. Honestly, I was about to go to his dorm and strangle him. Honestly, because he just did that for no reason.
Well, the
So,
good news is that with the match over, you still have an opportunity to do that.
No, we won that game. But I was gonna say that if we lost that game, I would have strangled him. Just saying.
In Minecraft,
Of course, Minecraft. Mhm.
Well, that crab leg game was absolutely phenomenal. And then from there, it seems like GT Gold picks up some momentum, and we head into, you have a 3-1 lead. GT picks up the next 2, and we're now headed to a game 7, Inkblot, Tower Control, final destination, so to speak. What was going through y'all's mind going into game number 7? Because you all came out with some fire. Like, it was absolute, it really was a clinic of how to sort of play that game very aggressively, because you all held control for about 4 minutes, and there was a period of time when our spec cam, I made a comment about there was more H-Town paint in GT Gold spawn than your own spawn. And our spectator cam had to go back to verify that, and it seemed to have been true. You know, what, I guess, first of all, you know, this all kind of culminates into a couple questions here. What was the mindset going into Game 7? And, you know, how did you all manage to play with just such aggression, such fire, to be able to hold on to such a long push?
Oh, yeah, I mean... Oh, sorry.
You go, Cheese.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't want to voice my anxieties in the team chat to bring down morale, but I was worried because the previous museum Tower Control, was the last time we played Tower Control, and it really just, like, dragged out. And it was not, like... It was, like... Even though we, like, eventually stopped their push, we just kind of just slowly bled out throughout the match. And doing Tower Control again, I was worried that there would be a somewhat similar result. I don't know. I think maybe the explosiveness just came from, like, the desire to just stop that from happening again. That was my own thoughts, but if Toast has anything else.
Well, what I did, I was getting a little... I think it's all... Splatoon is a mental game as well. Trust me. Like, if you're raging at Splatoon, you're gonna do bad. So I drank up that glass of water and just said, we gotta lock in. And we didn't even do like any game, like, hey, this is what we gotta do. We just locked in this game and we locked it out. And I think it's mostly just a mental game, you know? And also it was pretty good since I feel like we practiced Inkblot, Art Academy, Tower Control a lot during scrims. So I feel like we know the map a lot as a team. Especially me as an edit.
Real. Very familiar.
And with that matchup out of the way, your next matchup is going to be against the UCSD Gold. What are you going to be able to take away from this matchup that you're going to be able to put into Week 2's matchup?
I'd say probably look out for what we're weak at. Like, I feel like today we were clumped up a lot, which let the decav and the Rapid Blaster Pro get a lot of multi-kills. And I feel like we need to practice more on sort of spreading out a little.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's, you know, very well put because, yeah, I think that's a good point there because the crab and, you know, the one time the hammer came out on the side of GT Gold as well got a lot of value that almost helped GT Gold get through. So I think those are some great points that you all can start taking into next week. But at the very least, go celebrate the win. Congratulations once again. Thank you, Cheeseballs and Toast, for joining us. And we'll go ahead and start to wrap up this stream. But thank you both.
Thank you for having us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that was Toast and Cheeseballs from H-Town Rebels. They get the 4-3 victory here in week number 1. Neato. Fantastic set. Fantastic to get to talk to both of those players. They both made massive contributions today.
And they're also very lovely to talk to. We'll say, I wish Complete nothing but the best. It sounds like they may be out for you. So if you're listening to this, best of luck to you. But once again, H-Town Rebels GT Gold coming out with an absolute thriller of a matchup in week 1. And DRF, I hear, once again, there's more action coming our way tomorrow.
There certainly is. You hinted at it earlier. A double header Sunday afternoon or evening, I guess, if you're on the East Coast, but West Coast supremacy. Anyways, you got 2 more Div 1 matchups coming in tomorrow to close out the weekend, to close out week 1. So stay tuned for that. Neato, let's go ahead and close this one out. Where can the people of our chat find you?
Neato.bsky.social, Neato and Use on Twitch on a rare occasion that I do stream. And if you want to find me elsewhere, I am going to be planning for my next matchup because surprisingly I'm also in the CCA League despite being semi-retired. Retirement means nothing in competitive Splatoon, by the way. Where can the people of the internet find you, Mr. DRF?
You can go ahead and find me on Blue Sky DRF-Splatoon, on Twitch Triton DRF, but per usual you can find me right here on the CCA channel covering all things Collegiate Splatoon. Thank you all so much for watching this 7-game thriller on your Saturday evening. We will see you tomorrow for our Week 1 doubleheader.